Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. It's your host, Lara Jane. I am so excited to be here with Erica. Erica is going to help us understand and navigate burnout. And Erica, I wish I had you 20-something years ago because I definitely hit that burnout, or I didn't want to get up Monday through Friday anymore. I didn't want to go to the office. I was just done. And I miss a lot of the pieces about being in the office, but I don't miss that dread and that feeling of I just can't do another day. And I know our listener suffers from that also. So, and I shouldn't say suffer, experiences. We experience things. We don't suffer, right?
Right.
So all the information about Erica, how to get a hold of her, her social media accounts, those are in the show notes. You can just jump right in there when you're ready to reach out to her. But Erica, help our listener navigate burnout and prevent it if possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lara Jane. It's so nice to be here with you today. I'm so excited for this conversation because, burnout is such a big thing for so many of us in the office, in our businesses, in motherhood, and all these things that just feel like repetitive and we don't get a break from. And I come at it from the point of view of somatics and our nervous system. And the way I understand it is really sort of twofold. One is that it's this way that we aren't saying yes to ourselves. There's something in there that we're not saying yes to, that we're not saying no to. It's kind of twofold there. And then on the other side of it, from a nervous system perspective, we have these kind of like open programs running from our past that need to get closed and updated so that we're living more in the present and not so hooked into past experiences. Does that make sense?
Oh, heck yes. Yes. And I know they don't call it PSTD, but when you run into something that you've already experienced and you kind of panic, it's a mild case of it. And it is because we're holding on to that past and letting it. But let's remember why we even have that response in the first place. You know, way back when in Timbuktu, before we had all these luxuries around us, it was your survival. If you didn't remember what hurt, if you didn't know where the danger was, if you didn't remember those things, you'd get eaten up or die. And so it's very important 10,000 years ago. But we don't need as much of it today. And so there's that balance of getting rid of it and staying safe.
Well, right. I love that you say that because, right, the primal aspect of our nervous system is to be scanning for danger, right? Like actual real threats, like the bear around the corner in the tree or the, I don't know, the heat when we don't have proper, or we didn't have the kind of homes and aircon and stuff that we have now, right? Like these actual threats. So our system scans for that. And now living in the modern world, we can pick up any number of things, an email, a tone of voice, the number in our bank account, something a client says, something a boss says, and it will send us in a whole threat response that our actual safety is at risk. And yet it's not a one-for-one situation most of the time, not always, but most of the time we're in an office or we're in our homes and our actual safety is not threatened. Sometimes, but most of the time it's not.
That's how we got it. Now, how do we kind of quiet it so we can be in more control?
Well, that's the thing. And that's one of the reasons why I believe we end up in burnout is because we never actually get to quiet. Because these systems are running and there's so many open tabs. And so the work is to sense in and start to close them, which is like, that's the big question, right? How do we do that? So one is we actually do it with working with a practitioner who's trained and doing it. And then the other way is just we have to pause. We do have to pause. We have to have the intention and the awareness and consciousness to pause for a minute and maybe just look around at something we called orienting, like literally looking around our space and taking a moment to notice the objects around us. It seems kind of mundane, but it will actually create a stabilization and a downregulation in your nervous system, or to just sense into your body and notice that you feel maybe some rocking back and forth, rubbing your arms, and there'll be a little bit of a downregulation. And that, when we're in really big burnout and a lot of stress going on, that can feel really small. Like it can feel like, what the heck is this? Like, why am I doing this? But over time, these little pauses that we do, and it doesn't need to be big meditation. It doesn't need to be a yoga class. These kinds of aspirations we have to do these things to so-called fix our problems. It can literally be 30 seconds. If you do them many times over the course of the day, it will create some stabilization in you, and you will actually you'll feel a shift. You'll feel a shift. I want to say you'll feel some rest. It's a little bit cumulative before you actually feel some nourishment and restoration happen in the body. But there is a shift that starts to happen. It's pretty amazing.
You're right. We do that. So how do we, I can understand, we got to recognize it, right? Before we can do anything about it. So
Definitely.
how do we move from, because I know I recognize it. How do we start moving into, and I'm good at it, just being more quiet. How do we start moving there?
Yeah. Well, it's tricky, isn't it? Because a lot of people who are struggling with burnout, if you're struggling with burnout, we tend to be in this fight or flight response where it is like, go, 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 like moving on to the next thing, or have a really strong energetic charge. So, it's that piece in ourselves where we need to exercise our ability to make a choice, right? And to choose to, just for a moment, a couple times a day, if you're the kind of person that is really good at getting a lot of things done, then maybe it's setting your timer on your phone for 3 times a day to just take those moments to sense into your body and see what your felt sense is. Look around, notice that you're safe, and then see if maybe you take a little breath, have a yawn, and see what happens next.
Okay, so by just putting the pauses in, I don't even have to be filling anything else. Just every day, a few times a day, taking a pause moment. And this isn't like 10 minutes of meditation. This is a few
No.
breaths of relaxation and tuning in to yourself.
That's what I love about this work, because we have these aspirational ideas like, oh, I can fix this problem by meditating every 30 minutes every day or getting to the gym every day. But then in the reality of our lives, there's no room for that yet. We don't actually have the capacity for that yet. So we do these little micro moments of just like letting your jaw relax, taking a moment, seeing if you can let your tongue drop, let some relaxation come into your face. Maybe think of the beach. This is another one. Think of something that you just love: the beach, the forest, your dog. You feel some like resonance. I can feel it right now, right? There's like a little bit of resonance, a little bit of joy coming into the space. We just notice that. It's a little down regulation. And then we continue on with our day.
I love it because if I actually stopped and did this 3 times a day, by 2:00 in the afternoon, the stress of my jaw clenching would not happen because I would have already consciously worked through that and let it go. So what a great idea. I like that.
Yeah. And I think this is like starter stuff, right? This can lead to then choosing to work with a practitioner or going deeper to really like get to root causes. But this gets us started. And then when we're doing this for a little bit, we can think about like these bigger questions of like, what are we saying yes to that we don't want to be saying yes to? What are we not saying no to? Because there's usually an alignment piece in there with burnout too.
I know that when mine hit the hardest is when I was dealing with conflicts. Like, yes, I need to make money. Yes, I need to be with my family. Yes, I got all of these things and they all want to be number one on my plate. And Laura Jane became absolutely last because work had the highest priority. There was where the money was. The family had the next priority because they're,
Right.
you start, oh, I got to make the house payment, got to pay the bills, got to, all of these things that you worry about. And where do you lie in that priority? And it's funny how amazing you can feel when you start putting your own mask on first. And you start being able to take the time to breathe and you start being able to go, okay, what is really my priority? Like, oh, you guys say you're number one, but what's mine? And at that time, those few minutes of breath to just remind yourself of where that
Right.
is, I think is amazing.
Right. Well, that's what we're doing, right? Is we're centering in those moments, we're centering our relationship with ourselves. Even if it's just for a moment and there's something, it's bringing in presence, it's getting grounded in those moments. So those become anchors. And then we can start to like build on that and see where we can become more resourced. Where can we bring in help? Where can we refine decisions that we're making? Because what you're explaining, that's like kind of a bind. None of those things are going to give too much, right? And there's a period of our lives when we're sort of in that with the kids and the job and the way our society's set up. A lot of us don't have a lot of extra support. Then we can kind of see where we can what we can shift within that. But we need to have the presence, the connection to ourselves to make those really aligned decisions.
And how do we connect? How do you narrow down that where you have a good solid connection? I know I as much as you think you know who you are, I know who that robot was for 10, 15 years of when you turn off the emotions, you turn off the caring whether the priorities and you go through the motions of making the day work.
Right.
And that's hard to get to start even seeing that there's a person in there again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was lucky, like I got old enough I could retire. And so how do we help someone that's still there in the thick of it, in that robotic stage of I can't care or I will go crazy?
Mm. I think these little micro moments where we can turn towards ourselves, because when we are in a hustle like that, in a bind like that, and it's go, 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 there isn't time for the retreat, right? There isn't time for the vacation. Sometimes there isn't even time for an afternoon massage, or maybe there's not the funds for it, or, it just doesn't fit in for whatever reason. And so these little micro moments, if we can't, they're always available, right? You can it's before you send an email. It's before you check your bank account, right? It's that moment before you pick up the kids from school of just like, rubbing your shoulders a little bit, hand on the chest. There's a lot of different ones we can do. We can go over them if you want, like looking around, hand on the chest.
Yeah, let's pick two or three and share with our listener how they can do this. And then understanding this is the surface and that to really get deep down and figure it out, we need to reach out to a practitioner that can support us through that process.
Right.
But as the initial stage, let's go with something that bothers me a lot. And let's see how we can do it. And maybe that can help integrate. But I have a trigger of when I'm at a restaurant or outside. And this is probably started in the workplace when all of a sudden I felt like my choices are gone. Like I cannot make a choice. I cannot do it because it's all loses. I'm on a very restricted diet for my health. And if I go somewhere and there is not a thing on that menu that I can bake into my, and I don't want to call it restrictions, it's my choice plan. It's not a restriction. It's my choices. But when I get to there and I can't find anything without totally customizing, it's like I get really angry and stressed and I want to just lash out. What? And let's pretend like I'm at work and I have 10 minutes and I've got to be to another meeting. I have no time to do anything for me. Help me in that 10 minutes to reground a me state.
So what I would recommend there is that's like you're in a strong like fight response. Like there's all this stuff coming up, right? It's very triggering. So I would look for a way that you can get resourced. So just notice that you're there because it's like not something that's going to be solved right in that moment, but you can yourself feel better in it. So in the somatic world, being resourced means looking around and maybe finding something that you love. And we're not used to, we're sort of programmed as humans to kind of like focus on the negative. And when the negative comes up to just like, rawr, just go down there, right? So if you like look around and so if I can pull this up, this little funny keychain, this is my daughter's. You just look around and what's something that like brings you a little joy to look at? And just let yourself go there. So this silly thing, it's like pink and it reminds me of my daughter. And I could just look at that for a moment and, regulate into that. And then from there, sometimes a new choice will emerge, or at least what you're feeling can feel more tolerable.
Okay. So
Is that making sense?
Yeah. So I'm going to first, I'm going to say, okay, I'm being triggered.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a moment for me and I'm going to take some breaths and I'm going to look around. If I don't have anything with me that brings me joy, I'll look for a pretty color on the wall or someone that has cute hair or something that just can make me
that's
smile.
exactly it.
And get me out of the grungy.
Yes.
And then smile that there's so much beauty in the world. And then allow myself to go to the next step.
Yeah. And so it's not like spiritual bypassing, right? It's not like, and it's not distracting yourself and it's not trying to cover something up. It's actually noticing something else that's also true, right? Like maybe you love purple or magenta. And so you look at it and you notice that and it creates a little bit of regulation in your system. And then you can move on.
I can see where it would help at least let off some of this steam, kind of like hear the pressure cookers building up and just let some of it off so I'm not ready to explode. It may not take the heat away. It may not totally vent, but it gives it a start and it's then manageable.
And what it does, it's like creating a new muscle. So in your nervous system. So it's capacity. It's creating a larger pathway for your ventral system, for your system that is all about connection and love and the good things in your life. It broadens that cord. Like it's like if you if you get like a bigger broadband internet, it starts to make that larger by taking a couple minutes to focus on it. And so that you don't get completely stuck in that rah. This is wrong. I'm not getting a break. There's nothing to eat. And I'm on this diet and I get this email from my boss and like all the things that we can get very stuck on. It's kind of a pattern interrupt for that, which can feel, when I was really in the thick of my stuff, this modality, I would have been like, what the F? Like my stuff is so intense. This is like very subtle, like how could this possibly help me? And there's a little leap of faith because it's actually quite powerful, that taking a time out to feel yourself, to focus on something joyful is really impactful in the long run if you're doing it multiple times a day.
Do you think you could tell us a little bit about your journey of like
Yeah.
where you were when it started and how this process took you and where you're at today? Is that
Hmm.
something that, okay,
Oh yeah,
so
I'd love to
let's
do that.
do that as soon as we get back from our break.
Great.
We're going to get a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back. And then I want to hear about your journey and how powerful this modality was for you. So be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice? Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
All right, Erica, teach us. No, not that I want to put you on the spot because I know sometimes our pasts are sensitive, but explain a little bit more of that journey for you. Like, where were you in the worst of all? And
Oh
how
my.
did you get yourself out of
Yeah. So, let's see. So, in the worst of it, I was probably in my late 20s. I had a pretty difficult childhood. I had a bully of a father who I had a really strong bullies, really strong inner critics. Um, so much so that I was, in like jobs, like corporate jobs that I hated, couldn't do relationship, really was in lots of toxic relationships, really, honestly, in all areas of my life, nothing really worked. I felt like I was dying inside. That was really the language that made the most sense. Um, and I found transformational work. A friend told me to go see a therapist, and it kind of like unlocked something really big in me, and I started this journey and have gone through many modalities and lots of healers. And I I started a career as a floral designer in the San Francisco wedding industry, which was super healing and wonderful for me, for the community and working with flowers and my hands. And I met my husband that way. And yeah, I'm bringing that up because burnout is a big part of that industry. And so I've been on a healing journey my whole life, or not my whole life, since my late 20s. And then had this period where I was working in the floral industry, big jobs every weekend, long days, and, hit this burnout that happened. And so I'm bringing that up because we're talking about burnout here. And I had to make some really hard decisions at that time. So that's why I brought up the piece about the alignment, right? And
Mhm.
so I ended up choosing to leave that industry and move towards coaching, which had been another theme in my life that I'd been interested in already for many years as I'd been healing myself, and came into deeper alignment, and then found somatic work, which really just like opened so much up for me and gave me so much, like in retrospect, if I had known about this work when I was in the heat of burnout in my previous career, I think it really could have shifted some things for me if I had understood these like really deep patterns that were running me underneath, these fight or flight patterns, these freeze patterns that were
Mm.
keeping me stuck in these burnout loops.
So once you found, I mean, I know the try all the modalities. I know it's like, let's go to a sound bath. Maybe then I'll be healed. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm not saying they don't work. They're great, but there's more to change than just a one night thing. And so as you started working with this, how long did it take for you to finally not feel like you were dead or needed to just be gone? You said it was death inside.
So I worked with, before I found somatic work, or the work I do now, I worked with many different healers and therapists who had also a somatic thread. And yet, to answer your question, it took a few years. I wish I could say it was fast, but it took like about 5 years. It takes a long time when you're in that level of like the dark night of the soul. It takes a while to come out of it, and it's a lot of hard
and
work,
I don't
as you
think
probably
you
know.
want to come out faster.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about nature and a seed that's under the ground, if you were to put it on the surface, it would burn out. It would never grow.
Yes.
So if you want, once you've got the pain, you want to come out slowly. Why do you think it's not just noon and midnight? Why do you think the sun raises slowly?
That's so beautiful.
Slowly. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't just happen all at once. And when you want it to happen overnight, you're disappointed the next day and you're just adding more misery because now you're adding the new disappointment on top of it. But when you realize it's baby steps, it's one step at a time. It's be the sun, rise slowly. And you know what? Something's going to trigger us again and put us back down. And guess what? We can
Yeah.
come up again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you don't cycle through day and night anymore. It just means that you now understand the cycles and you know how to appreciate where each of them are. But when you're stuck in total darkness because we have so much anger, so I like to pretend like I'm the sunshine. You are always there. You are always shining. You are always beautiful. You are always amazing. Our sun doesn't go down. Our sun stays still.
Right.
You stay still. But we have cloudy moments. We have rainy moments. We have things that hide the sun. And that's when you can go, I do have the power. I just need to clear away the clouds. I just need to let these burn off this morning. My sun is rising. I am happy. The clouds are going to burn off. I'm going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we start to look at it that way, it's easier not to expect immediate results.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. Yeah. And that reminds me of what I was talking about earlier about these little micro moments where we tune in. And Deb Dana, who's a big leader in the polyvagal nervous system work, she talks about glimmers, which are the opposite of triggers. When we look for something that gives us a little bit of joy, and that's when we tap back into our sunshine within us, right? That's where we tap back into those places where we sense into our vitality, our presence, our soul, our gifts.
Yeah, I look at triggers
that helps
like that time you want to shut all the windows and close all the doors and hide.
Yeah.
That's a trigger. I want to remove myself from this situation. A glimmer is, oh, I want to see more of that. Open up the shades, open up the doors, because you get that I want more. So one I shut down and one I want more. And it is amazing as you can start refocusing when that little bad thing goes. Like when you were talking about just find something that you want to look at that you like, just that little tiny switch of look for something you like and give yourself that interrupt from that anger. I love it. I'm going to practice this more.
It's an amazing, amazing practice. Because it's also, there's so many, it's so deep. It's such a small thing, but it's so deep because it's also exercising some choice, right? So that we can, it's like a little micro turn away, but that builds a muscle also so that we can make a bigger shift, maybe to a new job, maybe to a new relationship, maybe a different school for our kids, a different town, whatever it is that is, because there's elements that are contributing to our burnout, right? To this thing that there is a calling for something bigger to shift, but it's usually so big that we need to Might not be so big, but it kind of depends on the person, right? But we need to kind of build these muscles of turning towards the good, and then we can do it in bigger ways too later.
I think, and maybe you can help me with this. So I think our listener may be afraid. You're starting to feel burnout. You're starting to wonder what next. And you go, I just need a whole new life. I need to move across the pond. I need to get out of here.
Right.
And you start looking at this impossibility. I can't just by tomorrow be in another country or in another job. It takes not practice, but takes time. It takes looking into it. It takes steps. And when you can look at it as, I can find steps right here, right now to be less burned out. And as that happens, you then start having the energy to make the bigger changes. And you go, okay, I'm less burned out. I have 10 minutes. I can look at a certification. I really, really want to be a dental hygienist. I don't know what anybody wants to be. You could start looking at the certifications and what does it take? And then all of a sudden you start seeing hope and you start seeing possibilities. And as long as you are looking at a dead end street, you're going to feel boxed in. You're going to add to the burnout. You're going to add because you think there's no possibilities. So as you take these micro moments and integrate them into your lives and free up a little bit of that stress and that frustration of feeling stuck, then as you start to do that, your brain's going to go, I can create a new outcome. I can create the things I want. And that is the magical power that every human being on this planet has, is the ability to change their mindset. When the fish gets sick, you don't throw away the fish, you change the water. And sometimes it's just the environment that we're in that needs to adjust. And most of that is our thinking.
Yes.
It is our thinking. I hear one time, oh, look at that lady's fat butt. And they could have been talking to somebody else. But guess what? I think about it for 30 years. We take these one little teeny tiny things common. And we just, they're talking to me. Oh, they want me out of the way. It wasn't even directed to you, but you replay it in your mind for the rest of your life. And this is where these little moments are going to start letting you focus on the gratitude and the good things in life and not wondering what that person last year said when I was in the line that knows nothing about me. So I think a lot of it is detaching from, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound like stupid, but what other people think. We worry so much about whatever somebody else thinks. And guess what? They are thinking about what you are thinking. They are thinking about what is everybody else thinking about me.
Totally.
I don't spend my day thinking about that person that was in the grocery store line at all. They're gone. Once I leave the grocery store, there's no more of it. And so it is our brains that we need to start decluttering and that we need to clean out and allow the clouds to go so that we can have some fresh sunshine.
Yeah. And I'd love to just pick up that piece around that we get these ideas that we need to make a really big change. Like you were saying, jump the pond or the new career. And I'm such an advocate of small incremental change, because what usually happens is we get these big ideas and then we get intimidated by the big idea and it feels overwhelming and we're afraid for the big idea. And it's like the to-do list is so big and then we end up not taking any action. And the mental pressure of this is what we need to do adds to the burnout. But what actually works and what actually creates the movement is just the little steps in there of the micro pauses. And then what's the one or two small things that you're willing to take action on today And then we take these little steps marching forward, and we get so much more change that way. And we can actually move, like, our systems. For many of us, we're so overloaded that the massive action and the big change just is like, we're not there. We can't do it. We need to do these smaller steps that are manageable.
And yeah, you can. I know a lot of people that have packed up and moved out and moved on. And if you are in a situation that is dangerous, and if you are in a situation that is more harmful than your own brain, move on.
Definitely.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
like,
There are
don't take
times
this
when we
as
need
baby
to.
steps all the time.
Right.
There are times when we need to take giant leaps for
So
our
true.
own
Thanks,
sanity and safety. So, yes, let's baby step it as long as we have that opportunity, because it is so much easier. It's like the analogy that people say about when you cook a frog. Like, if you put a frog in a hot pan, it's going to jump out. But if you put it in a pan and slowly turn the heat up, the frog doesn't know anything's changed. And to be in that comfort zone, I know we don't want to be comfortable all the time, but I do want to feel like I'm in control. And by slowly turning the heat up, or by slowly making that change, you don't have to make that. Ouch, it hurts. It just fits. It just works.
That's right.
And so let's be the frog in the cold frying pan and turn it up slowly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
I don't know who cooks frogs alive.
I don't know.
Whoever came up with that analogy, I don't know. And I've never tried it to prove it works or not. But,
right.
They said it, so it's got to be true.
Right. Right. Well, we stay in the zone of, like we were talking about earlier, in the zone of feeling safe, right? When we're a little bit uncomfortable, like it's a little warm, but we can still tolerate it. Our systems are feeling safe, versus the, like, crank it up. It's super hot. We're blown way out of what our normal is. And then we shut down or freak out or go shopping and spend a lot of money or watch Netflix for the next couple of days, right? We just blow ourselves out. So it's staying in
You can
in a
do both of those
tolerable.
at the same time nowadays.
Yes, you can. Right.
I've done that. Oh, what a hoot. No, I love it. I really think you came up in our short time, and it's fun to find quality in a nice short episode. But I think you did great at coming up with things that our listener can learn from. And that's, identifying what it is, taking some me moments, schedule them in. If you need one every 2 hours, do it.
Do it.
It doesn't matter, but at least do it a few times a day. Put it on your calendar, put it in your to-do list, put it on your phone, wherever you will pay attention, and take a me moment.
And it can be a couple minutes. Doesn't even need to be 10.
And I was going to say, and if you want to do it every time you go to the bathroom, you can do it then. You don't have to, you can just say, oh, it's my bathroom time. I'm going to, and let that be your release time in more ways than one. It's okay. So it's like coming up with these micro moments that you can take where you're not feeling like you're taking away from something else that's already going on. And then adding to it and making that path. And as you turn, you're going to see a brighter future, and you're going to have less of the cloudiness. And then if you are so far already burnt out, grab a practitioner, find someone that can help you, because I look at it as ruts. When you have a rut in the road, it's really hard to get out of. And the deeper the rut, the harder it is. And you can get so far that a car's not going to come out of that rut without damaging something. And if you're that far into your rut and your frustration, get some help in pulling yourself out of the mire, because it's the only way you're going to get through that big piece. And it can be gentle. It's not yanking you out in one moment. It's gently rerouting the car where you're on less deep ruts until you can be on a place that has no ruts. And it just takes time. So reach out to Erica if you want some help with this. She's amazing. I love the practical information that she has shared with us today. And Erica, do you have some last minute wisdom you would like to share with our listener today?
Let's see. One of my favorites is just to be kind to yourself. There's just nothing that can like soothe our hearts and our communities and our families and ourselves, like offering ourselves some kindness, which is what we're doing when we slow down in those micro moments. But it is, most of us weren't taught that. And yeah, being kind, take those moments and be kind to yourself. Those little micro moment practices.
I love it. Be kind. That's I should put it on my wall. Be kind to yourself. Because when you're kind to yourself, you can be kind to others. When you're angry and frustrated at yourself, it's very hard to be kind to others.
And when we're angry and are frustrated with ourselves, the kind thing to say is, oh, so angry and frustrated. Look at that. Like, here I am. I'm doing it again. And I can notice it and be with it. And I don't have to be mad at myself about it. But here I am. And then maybe tune into your dog, picture of your kids you love, right? To bring some of that glimmer in there.
That's where, they have those worry stones. And I wish they would just call them focus your mind somewhere else stones.
Yeah.
Because you can buy one of those and you can have it. And just find one that feels beautiful to you. Put it in your pocket, put it in your purse, or be like me, put it in your bra. Doesn't matter. It's a great place to hold things that you want close to your heart. And when you get in one of those moments, or you're on that potty break, you can tune into the beautiness. You can feel the smoothness. You can feel, it takes another sense, not just a thought, but it's adding some touch. And all of a sudden, you're just magnifying your ability to be present and to have that micro moment. So I love it. Listener, Erica and I are not medical or mental professionals. We are here for entertainment purposes. People that have been through crap, found our way back, and want to support others in finding the joy in their life again. Stop that burnout. So stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.